15 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council met for what many believed would be the last time. Only 300 delegates attended. Once there had been thousands. The crystal chamber looked empty, echoing with the absence of voices. High Chancellor Vexithara was no longer High Chancellor. She had resigned in disgrace. The new Chancellor was a being named Torvan, from a species that had always been practical rather than proud. He was the right leader for desperate times. "We must address reality," Torvan said without ceremony. 17 member species have withdrawn from the Council. 42 more have suspended their participation. The galactic economy has contracted by 60%. Medical facilities are overwhelmed. Food shortages are spreading. And the reason for all of this is simple. We drove away the one species that held everything together. "We didn't drive them away," someone protested weakly. "They left on their own, did they?" Ambassador Thildor stood. He looked older now, tired. "We laughed at them. We mocked their request. We increased their burdens while denying them respect. What did we expect them to do?" No one answered. "Elder Krisha has completed his comprehensive study," Torvan continued. "Elder, please share your findings." Krisha moved slowly to the center. He had spent 15 months documenting humanity's contributions to galactic civilization. The result was a document over 5,000 pages long. "I will summarize," Krisha said, though no summary can truly capture the scope of what we lost. He activated a holographic display. Humans maintained 73% of communication infrastructure. They operated 62% of trade routes. They staffed 48% of medical facilities. They designed or improved 81% of agricultural systems. They trained technicians in 317 systems. They mediated disputes in 46 sectors. He paused. The list goes on for pages. "Shall I continue?" "We understand," Torvan said quietly. "They were everywhere." "Not everywhere," Krisha corrected. "They were in all the places we didn't want to be. They did all the work we considered beneath us. And they did it so reliably that we forgot they were doing it at all." A young delegate stood. She was from a species that had only joined the Council 50 years ago. "I grew up with humans. I went to school with human children. My parents' shop was next to a human shop. We celebrated festivals together. They were just there, part of life. I never thought about them leaving." "None of us did," Thildor said. "That was the problem. What are they like now?" The young delegate asked. "Has anyone seen them? Talked to them?" "No," Torvan admitted. "Human space remains closed. We receive no communications. Ships that approach the border are turned away. We know nothing about what they're doing. Rumors say they're thriving," someone called out. "Building new colonies. Advancing their technology." "Not rumors," Elder Krisha said. "Confirmed reports from long-range sensors. Human space shows increased energy signatures. New construction. Expanded infrastructure. They're not struggling. They're growing." The chamber fell silent. The contrast was stark. The Council was collapsing while humanity prospered. On a medical world called Sanctuary, Dr. Selvos stood in a cemetery. Rows of markers stretched as far as he could see. Each marked someone who had died from a preventable disease. Not because there was no cure, but because the equipment to deliver that cure no longer worked. 3,000 dead, his assistant said. "In this facility alone. Multiply that across the galaxy," Zelvos replied. "How many have died because we were too arrogant to value the people who kept our medical systems running?" "We're learning. The new technicians are barely competent. It's not their fault. They're trying, but they don't have decades of experience. They don't have the institutional knowledge. Every day we discover another system we don't understand, another piece of technology we can't repair." A young alien approached. She was a medical student, studying to be a doctor. "Dr. Selvos? I found something in the archives. A message from the last human medical team that worked here." She handed him a datapad. Zelvos read it slowly. "To whoever finds this, we spent 5 years training local staff. We documented everything. We left detailed manuals. We tried to pass on our knowledge. But knowledge isn't enough. It requires practice. It requires mistakes and learning and time. You have the tools. You have the information. Now you need the experience. We hope you survive long enough to gain it. With respect, Dr. Jiwan and the human medical team." Selvos looked at the cemetery again. 3,000 people who didn't survive long enough. On Virtus 5, the second harvest had failed. The farmers had tried to use the human-designed systems. They had read the manuals. They had consulted with engineers. Nothing worked. Or rather, things worked partially, inefficiently, unpredictably. "We're going to starve, though," the lead farmer said at a planetary assembly. "Not today. Not tomorrow. But within a year, unless something changes." "We're rationing food," the governor replied. "Emergency supplies from other worlds. Other worlds are in the same situation. Everyone relied on human agricultural techniques. Now everyone is struggling. We're adapting, learning to grow food the old ways. The old ways produce half the yield. They require 3 times the labor. Our population is too large for the old ways." The governor had no response. The population was too large. That was the core problem. Galactic civilization had grown comfortable with human-level efficiency. Now forced to operate at pre-human levels, everything was too big, too complex, too dependent on systems they didn't understand. Trade Minister Kurmalik, former trade minister now, sat in a small apartment. His fortune was gone. His position was gone. He worked as a clerk in a trading house, processing paperwork by hand because the automated systems had failed. "How did this happen?" he asked his former assistant, who still visited occasionally out of loyalty. "You know how it happened, sir." "No, I mean, how did we become so dependent? We're ancient civilizations. We built empires. How did we let humans become so essential? Because they were competent. Because they said yes when others said no. Because they showed up every day and did the work without complaining. And because we never noticed." Kurmalik laughed bitterly. "We noticed enough to mock them, to deny them respect. Just not enough to value them." "Yes, sir." "Do you think they'll ever come back?" The assistant was silent for a moment. "Would you? If you were them?" Kurmalik had no answer. Ambassador Thildor's Museum of Human Achievement had become the most visited site in the galaxy. Millions came every year to see what they had lost. Human tools, human art, human technology, recordings of human music, samples of human food, books written by humans. Everything Thildor had managed to preserve. A young alien walked through the exhibits with wide eyes. "They made all this?" "They did," Thildor replied. He served as the museum's curator, spending his final years documenting a civilization that most of the galaxy had never truly seen. "Why didn't anyone tell us about them? In school they're barely mentioned." "Because we didn't think they were important. We thought they were just there. Background characters in our story. We never realized they were writing their own story, one that intersected with ours." "What happened to them?" "They left. We treated them poorly and they left." "Will they come back?" Thildor looked at the young alien, a child who had never known humans, a generation growing up in a galaxy that was less than what it had been. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I hope someday we'll be worthy of asking them to consider it." In human space, a celebration was happening. The founding of New Terra, humanity's first completely independent colony built after the Exodus. No alien technology, no galactic trade, just human knowledge and human effort. Admiral Bora attended the ceremony. She was retired now, but she represented the military leadership that had made the Exodus possible. "We did it," Dr. Taeyang said, standing beside her. "A complete human civilization independent of the galaxy. Did you ever doubt we could?" Bora asked. "No, but I wondered if we should. If leaving was the right choice." "And now?" Taeyang looked at the new colony. Human children playing. Human scientists working. Human artists creating. All of them free from the burden of maintaining a galactic civilization that didn't appreciate them. "Now I know it was," he said. "We're not bitter. We're not vengeful. We're just free." Director Meek-young approached them. "Report from the monitoring stations. The council met today. Their numbers are down to 300 delegates." "How many when we left?" Bora asked. 850. "They're dissolving." "Not dissolving," Meek-young corrected. "Contracting. Becoming smaller. More manageable. Maybe that's not a bad thing." "Maybe," Bora agreed. "Or maybe they'll just make the same mistakes on a smaller scale." "Not our problem anymore," Taeyang said firmly. "We have our own civilization to build. Let them figure out theirs." They stood together, watching the sunset on New Terra. Behind them, a galaxy struggled with the consequences of its arrogance. Ahead of them, humanity's future stretched bright and unlimited. "Do you think anyone will ever learn the real lesson?" Meek-young asked. "What lesson?" Bora replied. That competence matters more than grandeur. That respect matters more than power. That the people who do the work are more valuable than the people who take credit for it. Someday, Bora said. 8 months after humanity's departure, High Chancellor Vexithara did something she had never done before. She admitted she was wrong. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," she ordered. "I'm going to human space personally." Her advisors looked shocked. The High Chancellor never left Centrum Prime. It was beneath her dignity. But dignity didn't matter when the galaxy was falling apart. The journey to the human border took 3 days. It used to take 6 hours, but the fast travel routes weren't safe anymore. Vexithara used the time to prepare her speech. She would apologize. She would offer full council membership, security committee position, reduced tariffs. Whatever humans wanted. The diplomatic vessel approached the border. Automated defenses immediately locked onto them. "This is High Chancellor Vexithara of the Galactic Council," she broadcast. "I request an audience with human leadership." The response came instantly, but it wasn't from a person. It was a recorded message, emotionless and automatic. "Human space is closed to council vessels. Turn back immediately." "I have come to negotiate," Vexithara insisted, "to discuss terms of reconciliation. Turn back immediately. I am offering humanity full membership. Equal status. Everything you requested. Turn back immediately," the message repeated. No variation. No emotion. Just a simple rejection delivered by a machine. Vexithara tried for 6 hours. She offered more and more. The response never changed. Finally, a different message appeared. "Admiral Bora sends her regards. You wanted us gone. You have your wish, goodbye." The defense systems activated. Not weapons, they didn't fire. But the diplomatic vessel's engines suddenly shut down. All systems went dark. Life support remained active, but nothing else worked. A tug beam gently pulled the vessel back across the border and released it in council space. It took 2 days to get the engines working again. 2 days during which Vexithara sat in darkness, understanding just how easily humans could have destroyed them if they wanted to. They chose not to. They just wanted to be left alone. On Virtus 5, the harvest had failed. 30 billion aliens across 6 systems were going hungry. Not starving. Human-designed emergency food reserves were still available. But the fresh food was gone and no one knew how to fix the irrigation systems. "We need the humans back," the lead farmer said at a planetary council meeting. "I don't care about pride. I care about feeding people." "The council is trying," the governor replied. "They're working on it. Try harder." But trying didn't help. Messages to human space went unanswered. Attempts to hire human contractors failed. There were no contractors. Every human had withdrawn completely. A young engineer named Kickstar proposed a solution. The humans left behind their equipment, their tools, their manuals. "Can't we learn from those?" "We tried," his supervisor said. "Look at this." He showed Kickstar a maintenance manual for the irrigation system. It was in human language, which translated easily enough. But the content, "What's this symbol?" Kickstar asked, pointing to a mathematical equation. "We don't know. Human mathematics uses different base systems than ours. We're working on translating it, but it's complex." "And this diagram?" "Human mechanical engineering. Their machines use principles we didn't study. We're learning, but it takes time." "How much time?" "Years, maybe decades. Humans spent centuries developing this knowledge. We can't absorb it in months." Commander Zelnix refused to accept defeat. He assembled a military fleet, 200 ships, the pride of the Hive Legion. "We'll force our way into human space," he declared. "Take their knowledge by force if necessary." Ambassador Thildor tried to stop him. "This is madness. You'll start a war." "War?" Zelnix laughed. Humans never had a strong military. They were merchants and technicians, not warriors. "This will be easy." The fleet approached human space. Warning messages played, but Zelnix ignored them. He gave the order to cross the border. The automated defenses activated. No ships appeared to fight them. No human vessels challenged them. Instead, the fleet's systems began failing. Navigation went offline. Weapons wouldn't charge. Life support started fluctuating. And then, gently but firmly, every ship was pushed back across the border by invisible force fields. When Zelnix finally got his systems back online, he found a message waiting. "Your fleet is returned undamaged." "The next one won't be so lucky. Stay out of human space. Zelniks never spoke of the incident again. His flagship had been disabled in seconds. 200 ships controlled by machines that didn't even need a crew. The humans had let them live, and somehow that was worse than being destroyed. Trade Minister Kormalik tried a different approach. Economic pressure. We'll embargo human goods, he announced. Refuse to buy anything from them. They'll come crawling back. Elder Krisha looked at him with something like pity. What human goods? They stopped trading with us months ago. You're proposing to embargo something that doesn't exist. They'll want to trade eventually. They'll need our resources. Will they? Krisha pulled up data. Human space contains 12 major resource-rich systems. They have everything they need. It's we who needed their trade network. They were connecting us to each other. Without them, we're isolated. Kormalik's fortune continued to collapse. He wasn't alone. The galaxy's economy was in freefall, not because of sabotage or warfare, but because the connective tissue was gone. Humans had linked the galaxy together, and without them, it was falling apart. Medical facilities across the galaxy were in crisis. Dr. Zelvos had lost 17 patients to diseases that should have been easily treatable. Equipment continued to fail. Pharmaceutical synthesizers stopped working. Human-designed medicines couldn't be reproduced, the formulas were too complex, requiring knowledge of chemistry that most species had never needed to learn. We're going backwards, he told his colleagues at a medical conference. 200 years of medical advancement gone. All because we relied on human innovation and never bothered to understand it ourselves. Can't we reverse engineer their technology? Someone asked. We've tried. Every time we open up a human-designed machine, we find safeguards. It's not malicious, they're just built to fail safely if operated incorrectly. But we don't know the correct way to operate them. We don't have the training. Surely some species has the knowledge. Some species has pieces of the knowledge, but humans had all of it. They understood how everything fit together. We specialized. They generalized. And now we're paying the price. The Galactic Council convened again, 6 months after Vexithara's failed diplomatic mission. The chamber was even emptier now. Some species couldn't attend because travel was too dangerous. Others had withdrawn from the council entirely, focusing on their own survival. We need to accept reality, Vexithara said. Her crystalline form looked dimmer, less bright. Humans aren't coming back. Then we move forward without them, someone said half-heartedly. How? Thildor asked. We're barely maintaining what we have. Systems fail every day. We patch them temporarily, but we don't understand how they really work. We're living on borrowed time, using borrowed knowledge. We'll adapt, learn, grow. That will take decades, Elder Krisha said. Perhaps centuries. Humans didn't become indispensable overnight. They built their expertise over generations. We dismissed them as primitive, but they were learning the entire time, learning everything. While we rested on our ancient achievements, they were building the foundation of a new civilization. So what do we do? Kormalik asked, defeated. His personal fortune was gone. His political power was crumbling. Just give up? We learn our lesson, Krisha said. We learn to do the work ourselves. The boring work. The difficult work. The work we thought was beneath us. And maybe in a few generations we'll be competent enough that humanity might consider talking to us again. A few generations? Vexithara was horrified. That's the consequence of our arrogance, Krisha finished. We had 150 years to treat humans with respect. We chose mockery. Now we have centuries to learn humility. In human space, Ambassador Day-Wan read the reports from Council space. The desperate pleas. The failed attempts at contact. The collapsing economy. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a weary sadness. They still don't understand, he said to Captain Haywan. They were both retired now, but old habits kept them informed. What don't they understand? Haywan asked. They think we left because we were angry, because they hurt our feelings. Daywan shook his head. We left because we were done. Done being useful to people who didn't value us. Done fixing problems for those who mocked us. Done giving everything and receiving nothing. Do you think they'll ever understand? Maybe in time. But by then we'll be something different. Something they won't recognize. Haywan looked out at the stars of human space. New colonies were being built. New technologies developed. Freed from the burden of maintaining galactic infrastructure, humanity was growing in directions they had never imagined. Good, she said simply. Let them learn. We're done teaching. When humanity departed in silence, and the galaxy finally understood its mistake. 4 months after the last human ship crossed the border, Trade Minister Kurmalik stared at reports that made no sense. His personal fortune, built over 2 centuries of careful trading, had dropped by 40%. The galaxy's economy was collapsing and he couldn't understand why. Explain this again, he demanded of his economic advisors. 3 aliens sat before him, each from a different species, each looking worried. The trade routes are failing, the first advisor said. She was insectoid with multiple eyes that twitched nervously. Ships are disappearing. Pirates are attacking. Routes that were safe for 100 years are now dangerous. Why aren't we stopping the pirates? We're trying, Minister, but the patrol schedules are wrong. The safe corridors have shifted. The navigation data we relied on is outdated. Then update it. We can't. The humans maintained that data. They mapped the safe routes. They tracked the gravitational anomalies. They monitored the pirate movements. Without them, we're navigating blind. Kurmalik's bulbous form rippled with anger inside his water sphere. Hire new navigators. There are no navigators as skilled as humans, Minister. That's the problem. On an agricultural world called Virtus 5, farmers watched their crops dying. The irrigation system had stopped working properly. Water flooded some fields while others dried up. The alien farmers called for help, but no one came. Where are the human technicians? The lead farmer demanded. He was a large creature with thick skin and a temper to match. They're supposed to maintain these systems. They left months ago, his assistant replied. We thought we could handle it ourselves. Well, we can't. Call them back. Offer more money. Whatever it takes, the assistant tried. He sent messages to the last known human contacts. All of them bounced back. He tried calling the human embassy. The building was empty. He tried contacting human commercial networks. They were offline. They're gone, the assistant said finally. All of them. And they took their knowledge with them. The farmer looked at the dying crops. Virtus 5 fed 30 billion aliens across 6 systems. If the harvest failed, people would starve. In a medical facility on Centrum Prime, Dr. Zelvo stood over a patient who was dying. The disease was treatable. He had treated it hundreds of times before. But the medical scanner that diagnosed it wasn't working. He had tried everything. Changed the power supply. Reset the systems. Replaced the connectors. Nothing worked. Did we call the maintenance contractor? He asked his staff. The maintenance contractor was a human company. They're gone. All of them? All of them. Dr. Zelvos looked at the scanner. It was human-designed, built to work with multiple species biology. Revolutionary technology, but now just an expensive piece of junk that he didn't know how to fix. How many of our systems are human-made? He asked quietly. His assistant checked a database. Her face changed as she read. 68%. The scanners, the surgery equipment, the pharmaceutical synthesizers, the environmental controls. She stopped. Almost everything. And how many of them are still working? For now, most of them. But we're starting to see failures, and we don't know how to repair them. High Chancellor Vexithera convened an emergency council session. The chamber was less than half full. Many delegates couldn't travel because the communication network was failing. Messages that once took hours now took days. Some routes had gone completely silent. We need to discuss the human situation, Vexithara announced. Her crystalline form didn't shimmer as brightly as usual. Even she was beginning to look stressed. What human situation? Someone called out. They left. Good riddance. They didn't just leave, Ambassador Thildor said, standing. They were the infrastructure. They maintained the systems we all depend on, and now those systems are failing. Then we'll hire others to maintain them, Kurmalik said. Who? Thildor challenged. What species has the technical knowledge? The training? The experience? Humans didn't just do these jobs, they were the only ones who knew how to do them. That's absurd, Vexithara said. Surely someone else can learn. Can they? Thildor activated a holographic display. Let me show you what we've lost. Human merchants operated 62% of long-distance trade routes. Human engineers maintained infrastructure on 317 worlds. Human doctors staffed medical facilities in 89 systems. Human technicians serviced everything from communication networks to waste recycling systems. The display showed a map of the galaxy. Blue lights marked human contributions. There were thousands of them, spreading across every sector like a web. They weren't just helping, Thildor continued. They were the foundation. And we were so busy dismissing them as primitive that we never noticed. This is exaggerated, Vexithara insisted. Is it? Thildor pulled up more data. Agricultural output is down 20% galaxy-wide. Medical facilities are reporting equipment failures. Trade volume has dropped by half. Communication delays are measured in days instead of hours. And it's been only 4 months. How bad will it be in a year? In 5 years? The chamber fell silent. Elder Krisha spoke for the first time. He was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species, a being who had seen empires rise and fall. I have been studying the humans since their departure, he said, his voice like old stones grinding together. Not because I was asked, but because I was curious. Do you know what I found? No one answered. Humans are not remarkable by our standards. They're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. They don't have the longest lifespans or the most advanced technology, but they have something we lack. They're generalists. They learn everything. They adapt to anything. They can fix a broken machine on a Monday and negotiate a trade agreement on Tuesday and perform surgery on Wednesday. They're competent at everything. So what? Someone called out. So they became indispensable without us noticing. We specialized. We built societies where everyone had a specific role. Humans, they filled the gaps. Every gap. All the little jobs that no one else wanted to do. The boring work. The difficult work. The work that required you to understand multiple species and multiple systems. They did it all, and they did it quietly. Krisha pulled up another display. Here's the truth we don't want to face. The galactic civilization we've built doesn't work without humans. Not because they controlled us. Not because they made us dependent. But because they made themselves useful in 10,000 small ways, and we never said thank you. Commander Zelnix, a military leader from the Insectoid Hive Legion, stood. This is weakness talking. We're the Galactic Council. We've existed for 10,000 years. We don't need humans. Then prove it, Thildor said. Fix the systems. Navigate the routes. Maintain the equipment. Go ahead. Zelnix buzzed with anger but said nothing. We need to contact them, Kormalik said. Offer them something, anything, get them back. We've tried, Vexthera admitted. Every message bounces back. Every ship we send to human space is turned away by automated defenses. They're not answering. Then we force them to answer, Zelnix said. Send a military fleet. To do what? Thildor asked. Start a war? Even if we won, which I doubt, we'd gain nothing. You can't force people to fix your machines. You can't compel them to care. The chamber descended into arguments. Species blamed each other. Some demanded action. Others counseled patience. But beneath all the noise was a growing realization that terrified them. They had made a mistake. A catastrophic mistake. And they didn't know how to fix it. In human space, Director Mi-kyung watched the chaos through monitoring stations. She saw the arguments in the council. She saw the systems failing. She saw the desperate attempts to contact humanity. Should we respond? Her assistant asked. No, Mi-kyung said. Let them figure it out. We gave them 150 years to treat us with respect. They chose not to. We're done. Some of them are dying. Medical equipment failures, food shortages, are they? Mi-kyung pulled up data. Look closer. The systems are failing, yes, but slowly. The medical equipment will work for another year with basic maintenance. The crops will grow with simpler irrigation. The trade routes are dangerous but not impossible. No one is dying. They're just uncomfortable. You planned this. We planned an exit, Mi-kyung corrected. Dr. Tae-yang made sure nothing would fail catastrophically. We're not monsters, but we're also not their servants anymore. If they want our help, they need to learn to ask properly. The monitor showed the council chamber still in chaos. Mi-kyung turned it off. She had more important things to do. Humanity was building something new, something better. The galaxy could figure out its own problems. They had the tools. They had the knowledge. They just had to do the work themselves for once. When humanity departed in silence, and the galaxy finally understood its mistake, Admiral Bora stood in the command center of Orbital Station Genesis, humanity's largest military installation. The station floated in deep space far from the galactic trade routes. Around her, holographic displays showed every human presence in the galaxy. Colonies, outposts, stations, ships. There were thousands of them, scattered across council space. One by one, they were turning blue. Blue meant they had received the protocol silence order. Blue meant they were preparing to leave. Status report, Bora said. She was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years in Earth's defense fleet, rising through ranks by being smarter and more efficient than everyone else. "First wave is ready?" her second-in-command replied. "Colony ships from the Outer Rim territories. They're packed and ready to depart. The aliens haven't noticed yet. Good, keep it that way." Operation Homecoming proceeds as planned. Operation Homecoming. The name had been chosen carefully. Not evacuation, not retreat. Homecoming. Because that's what this was. Humanity was going home. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Tae Yang worked in his laboratory on Research Station Prometheus. He was a thin man with quick hands and a brilliant mind. For 40 years, he had developed technologies that made galactic life easier, medical scanners that worked on any species, communication systems that translated in real time, agricultural methods that could grow food on barren worlds. Now he was carefully taking them all apart. "The safeguards are in place," his assistant said. She was young, barely 30, and looked worried. "But doctor, are you sure? Some of these systems, if they fail, aliens will die." "They won't fail immediately," Tai Yang said, his hand steady as he removed a critical component from a medical scanner. "They'll work for another 6 months, maybe a year. Long enough for the aliens to find their own solutions. We're not murderers. We're just not helping anymore. What if they can't find solutions?" Tae Yang paused. "Then they'll learn the same lesson we learned. You can't take help for granted forever." In the trading hubs, human merchants were closing their businesses. Mi-sun owned a shipping company that transported goods across dangerous routes. Other species considered these routes too risky, but human pilots were skilled and brave. Her company connected 12 major trade networks. "All contracts are fulfilled," her operations manager reported. "No new agreements signed. The alien merchants keep asking for meetings, but we keep saying we're busy." "Good," Mi-sun said. She looked at the manifest one last time. Her family had run this business for 3 generations. They had built relationships with dozens of species. Some of them she considered friends. But friendship worked both ways. The council session had made that clear. "Send the final shipments. After that, we're done." "Where will we go?" "Home, like everyone else." Director Mi-kyung sat in a dark room filled with monitors. She was the head of Human Intelligence Services, a position few people knew existed. Her job was to know everything about everyone. Right now, she was watching the Galactic Communication Network. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Shut down the relay stations." Human engineers had built most of the galaxy's communication network, relay stations that bounced signals across vast distances, translation software that let thousands of species talk to each other, emergency systems that warned of dangers. They all had one thing in common: they all had human-built backdoors, not for spying, not for sabotage, just simple off switches that only humans knew about. One by one, the switches were flipped. On a remote agricultural world, human technicians were packing their equipment. They had spent 5 years teaching the local aliens how to maintain their irrigation systems. The systems were complex, designed to work with the planet's unusual soil chemistry. "You're leaving?" the alien farmer asked. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected confusion. "But the harvest season is starting. We need you." "The contract is complete," the human technician said. "We taught you everything you need to know. But there are still problems we don't understand. Questions we need answered. You'll figure it out." The technician picked up the last case and walked toward the shuttle. The alien farmer called after him, but he didn't turn back. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. Human doctors finished their shifts and didn't return. Human teachers completed their classes and disappeared. Human engineers fixed one last problem and then vanished. The aliens noticed, but slowly. Humans were reliable. They were always there. It didn't occur to most species that humans might simply stop showing up. Ambassador Thildor noticed. He was one of the few aliens who had voted against denying humanity's petition. He sent messages to his human contacts. None of them responded. He traveled to a human colony world and found it empty. The buildings were intact. The infrastructure was maintained. But not a single human remained. He tried to warn the council. "Something is wrong," he said at an emergency session. "The humans are disappearing." "Disappearing?" Kormalik laughed. "They probably realized they were overextended. Good. Let them consolidate. It will make them easier to manage." "You don't understand," Thildor insisted. "They're not consolidating. They're leaving entirely. I checked their colony on Meridian 7. It's empty, clean. like they were never there. Then they abandoned property, Vexthara said dismissively. We'll repurpose it. But when council engineers tried to enter the abandoned human facilities, they found all the systems locked. Password protected. The humans had taken their knowledge with them. In human space, ships arrived constantly. Colony ships, trading vessels, research stations that had been disassembled and transported piece by piece. They all came home. Admiral Bora watched the displays. Nearly 70% of human assets had withdrawn. Another 20% would be gone within the week. The final 10%, the deep space installations, would take another month. Admiral, a communications officer called. We're receiving distress calls from aliens. They're asking for human assistance with system failures. How many calls? Hundreds. From across the galaxy. Ignore them, ma'am. You heard me. We're done answering their calls. On the border of human space, the final piece of the operation was falling into place. Defense stations came online. Not weapons platforms, humans had never been aggressors, but automated defense networks. Sophisticated systems that could detect, track, and redirect any ship trying to enter human territory without permission. Captain Haywan commanded the last diplomatic vessel to cross the border. Behind her, a line of human ships stretched across space, thousands of them, the last of humanity's presence in council space. All ships accounted for, her navigator reported. We're the last ones. Haywan looked at the monitor showing council space. She had spent her entire career traveling those stars. She had friends out there. Good memories, but also bad ones. The laughter in the council chamber. The dismissive words. The casual disrespect. Activate the border defense network, she ordered. Ma'am, once we activate it, there's no going back. The council won't be able to contact us. I know. Do it. The defense network came online. Invisible barriers of sensor fields and automated systems created a wall around human space. Not to keep humans in. To keep others out. It's done, the navigator said quietly. Haywan nodded. Behind them, council space continued its daily business. Ships moved between stars. Trade happened. Politics played out. And slowly, very slowly, things started to break. Systems that humans maintained began having problems. Trade routes that humans navigated became dangerous. Medical equipment that humans serviced started failing. Communication networks that humans built started experiencing delays. Small problems at first. Manageable. But they would grow. In her quarters, Admiral Bora received the final confirmation. Every human was out. Every ship was home. Every system was shut down. The 18-month operation was complete. She composed a brief message to the human government. Operation Homecoming successful. All personnel accounted for. Humanity has departed council space. We are home. She sent it and then turned off the monitors showing council space. She didn't need to watch anymore. What happened next was the aliens' problem, not humanity's. In the silence of space, the border between human and council space was now clear. On one side, a thriving civilization that had quietly become the backbone of galactic society. On the other, a galaxy that didn't know what it had lost, not yet. When humanity departed in silence and the galaxy finally understood its mistake, the Galactic Council chamber floated in space like a giant crystal. Inside, thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds gathered for their annual meeting. The chamber was massive, with seats rising in circles around a central stage. Lights from distant stars filtered through the transparent walls, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. Ambassador Daywan stood in the center. He was a human, average height by his species standards, with graying hair and calm eyes. He wore simple blue robes, the diplomatic uniform of Earth. Around him, aliens of every shape and size watched. Some had multiple eyes, others had none. Some breathed oxygen, others survived on gases humans found toxic. But they all shared one thing. They looked at Daywan with dismissal. For 150 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. They paid their fees. They followed the rules. They helped when asked. Human engineers fixed broken machines on alien worlds. Human doctors treated diseases in species they had never seen before. Human merchants carried goods across dangerous space routes that others refused to travel. Yet humanity had never been given a real voice. They were associate members, not full members. They could speak but not vote on important matters. Today, Daywan was here to change that. Honored Council, Daewon said, his voice steady. Humanity requests elevation to full membership status. We ask for a seat on the Security Committee. We have proven our commitment to this council through 1.5 centuries of service. High Chancellor Vex Thera rose from her elevated seat. She was a crystalline being, her body made of living glass that refracted light in dazzling patterns. Her species, the Crystallos, had been part of the council for 10,000 years. She looked down at Daewon with what might have been amusement. Humanity, she said, her voice echoing through translators into 1,000 languages. You are children playing at politics. Your species discovered faster than light travel only 300 years ago. We were building star empires while your ancestors lived in caves. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults give to children who say something foolish. Daewon did not react. He simply waited for the laughter to fade. Trade Minister Kurmalik floated forward. He was amphibious, his bulbous body suspended in a sphere of water. Perhaps, he said with a wet, gurgling sound, humanity should focus on what they do best. You make excellent technicians. Your merchants are reliable. Why reach beyond your station? We ask only for what we have earned, Daewon replied. Earned? Vex Thera's crystalline form seemed to brighten with amusement. You earn your place by existing in our space, using our technology, benefiting from our protection. The resources your worlds provide barely cover the cost of your membership. This was a lie, and Daewon knew it. Human trade routes connected 60% of galactic commerce. Human engineers maintained infrastructure on 300 alien worlds. Human agricultural techniques had ended famines on dozens of planets. But he did not argue. He had tried arguing for 50 years. It changed nothing. I propose, Kurmalik continued, that we increase the tariffs on human trade routes by double. Additionally, humanity should contribute more resources to the Council's infrastructure projects. Several aliens chittered or hummed in agreement. Daewon noticed that many of them used human-built translation devices to understand each other. They sat in chambers maintained by human engineers. They would return home on ships that used human navigation systems. They saw none of it. The motion to deny humanity's petition is called to vote, Vex Thera announced. All in favor? Lights appeared across the chamber as aliens voted. Green lights, thousands of them. The voting display showed the count, 847 in favor of denial. All opposed? 3 small lights appeared. Red, alone in a sea of green. Ambassador Thildor, a bird-like creature with emerald feathers, was one of them. He met Daewon's eyes across the chamber and gave a small, sad nod. The motion passes, Vex Thera declared. Humanity's petition is denied. Furthermore, the proposed tariff increase is approved. This council is adjourned. Daewon stood in the center of the chamber as aliens began filing out. Some walked past him without a glance. Others gave him what might have been sympathetic looks, though it was hard to tell with alien faces. One group of young aliens were laughing, pointing at him as they passed. Captain Haywan approached from the visitors' gallery. She was younger than Daewon, with sharp eyes and a military bearing. She wore the uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. But Daewon knew she was also an officer in Earth's defense fleet. Ambassador, she said quietly. The ship is ready. Daewon nodded. He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the now emptying chamber. No one called after him. No one asked if he was all right. He had given 50 years of his life to this council. He had negotiated treaties, resolved disputes, and built bridges between species. And in the end, they had laughed at him. The walk to the docking bay felt longer than usual. The corridors of the council station were filled with aliens going about their business. Automated systems hummed, systems that humans had installed. Signs glowed in universal script, a language humans had helped standardize. Environmental controls kept the air breathable for dozens of species. Technology humans had contributed. No one noticed. At the docking bay, the human diplomatic vessel waited. It was smaller than most ships there, built for efficiency rather than show. Captain Haywan led the way up the boarding ramp. Inside, the crew waited. They looked at Daewon with questions in their eyes. He had been gone for 6 hours. They had watched the session on monitors. Begin departure procedures, Daewon said calmly. Set course for Earth, sir, Haywan said as they walked toward the bridge. What happened in there? I'm sorry, don't be, Daewon replied. He stepped onto the bridge and looked out at the council station through the viewport. It truly was beautiful. That crystal structure floating against the stars. They showed us exactly who they are. We should thank them for the clarity. He turned to the communications officer. Send a message. Code silence. Priority Alpha. The officer's hands hesitated over the controls. Sir, I know what it is, Daewon said. Send it, the message went out. It was encrypted, brief, and would reach every human colony, station, and ship in the galaxy. 2 words. Protocol silence. The diplomatic vessel detached from the council station and turned toward human space. Behind them, the crystal chamber continued to glow. Inside, aliens celebrated another successful session. They had put the upstart humans in their place. They had secured more resources from a species too weak to resist. They did not know they would never see another human ambassador again. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Daewon sat in his cabin. He removed his diplomatic robes and folded them carefully. He had worn these robes for 50 years. He had believed in what they represented. He had thought that patience, competence, and goodwill would eventually earn respect. He had been wrong. On his desk, a small screen showed incoming responses to his message. Confirmations from Admiral Bora, from Director Mi Kyung, from colony governors and station commanders and ship captains across the galaxy. The message was the same from all of them, understood. Beginning withdrawal. Daewon turned off the screen and looked out the viewport. Stars streaked past in the strange colors of faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead was Earth, somewhere. Behind was a galactic civilization that had just made the worst mistake in its long history. They had taught humanity that they were not wanted. Humanity had learned the lesson well. When humanity departed in silence and the galaxy finally understood its mistake,